This is going to be a quick introduction to Glide apps, and I really, in this video, want to demonstrate how quickly, with a bit of knowledge, we can actually build things. I've been using Glide for about 6 months now, and of course it's been a journey, it's been a learning process. But I really believe that it is a very good tool to be able to allow both technical and non-technical users to just get that app building ball rolling faster and get a product out there. So what is Glide App? Glide App is a app building tool similar to the ways in which you might have a web builder like Squarespace or Wix and those types of things, but in the app realm, let's say. So it does actually involve no coding. Glide is a no code, low code app builder. But low code refers to there are elements in which you can include code if you want to, but it's not necessary to get the results that you would want. You can get you can build an app without writing a single line of code, basically. So brief introduction on what Glide is. But yeah, let's go ahead and let's start building an app. Let's call it tracking. What is that about? Okay, dense tracking app. It's not too important if we do it on mobile or large screen because we can change that later. Here we're just going to select Glide's native tables. We can worry about the rest at another time. My mission here is really to try and do this as fast as possible, while also explaining things, but really sort of going over what is what and just giving a rundown on what the possibilities are. So this is the Glide interface, Glide app interface. On the left hand side here we have our screens. So Glide, with this new app that we created, it already creates some screens for us, but we're going to be deleting this all in a second. But here are some examples. It also shows us user profile. Okay, down here we have the components for each one of those screens. So let's go to the things screen. As you can see, we've got a collection here. That's this right here. Back office has a data grid. Again, this is here, and we can add a bunch of more components. Just to, my face is going to get in the way probably a fair bit. So these are the types of components. As you can see, there's quite a few, and they'll make a lot more sense as we start going through it. On the right hand side, if we click on the black space behind the screen, we'll get to the sort of settings for that page. So here we can see that there's the source of the page, the name, the label. So if we just said, okay, I want this to be my home screen, see we see it changes it here and it changes it there. We can pick the style of screen we want it to be, and then depending on that, there are going to be different options. In this case, because it's a data grid, it gives us columns, some actions down here, and then there's further customization options over here. Right now we're not going to worry too much about that. Quick thing to note over here, we have the desktop preview, which I actually like working in because it's a little bit bigger, but it's always good to be bouncing back and forth, especially if your app is going to be for mobile usage, because you need to make sure that the way that it's looking in one place is how you want it to look, and you want to make sure that it's looking the way you want it to look in both device previews. There we go. That's what I was trying to say. Up here at the top, you can see that we have data, layout, and actions. And those are really the three main pillars that we're going to be focusing on to build our app. Data, of course, is the data that's behind our app. You can see we've got different tables, and we're actually going to get rid of these. They're not something that we need right now. Oh, make sure we delete the right one. And here in the users table, let me just upload a a picture, so I can double click there and click on the edit button, and we're actually going to upload this. That looks like a picture of my face. Cool. We're not going to worry about the role either. One thing to keep in mind here, if you're very new to data and not sure what we're actually looking at here, is each of these rows, so the horizontal lines across, is in this case it's an individual. So I could make up a new person here and say, let's add Tom. Tom's a mate of mine, and he has an email. We're not going to add a photo, and we're not going to add a role. So this second row is another user, and as we add more rows, we have users, more users added, more elements of this table. Those are the rows. The columns are the properties of each one of those elements. So within this first row, that's my row, Sebastian here, we have the name, we have the email, photo, and role. Those are the columns. Rows are horizontal, columns are vertical. Rows are the elements, and the columns are the properties of that element. So that was data. Very quick overview of what it is. We'll definitely go into more depth as this app gets more complex, but really right now it's just showing you the very basics of what we can do. Layout is the visual aspect of things, the visual components, literally the components that go here. The screens, again, we'll get rid of these screens because we're going to start clearing out. Oh, I think I duplicated it instead of deleting it. And we're going to create a new custom screen. Think of the layout as the windows into the data. So without data, like, our layout really is just what is it really interacting with, what is it showing, and then the data without the layout is really, it's just the raw data. So the layout is what allows us to take a mirrored view, or a specific view of data. So in this case, let's say this new screen, let's call it home screen. Let's change the icon, give it a nice home, and then the source of this, what data do we want it to show? Well, we want it to show, this is going to be a user home page. So what we want it to show is the user data. Now, do we want it to show everybody's data? If, for example, I go here and I decide I want a list, this is now showing, because Tom doesn't have an image, let's upload an image. Let's just use a stock image. Wow, it looks like Tom is going to be some sprinkles. Okay. So right now, roll foot. So is it already filtering? Interesting. Now, the idea here is that it's already filtering for some reason, right? They have, oh, because, let me guess. Right. Okay. So what's gone on here? I didn't want to explain this straight away, but I guess Glide went about doing it automatically, as I didn't create this myself. Glide created it. So what it's done is, if we edit here, it says remove row owner, and row owner, what that does is that based on this column, so the email column, based on that, if the person logged in, the user logged in, they're the owner of that element, of that property, then it will only show that row of data. So right now, if we go over here, we can see I've removed that, so it's just showing everybody. But if I want to reduce that data to make it so it only shows the data that the logged in user, which is myself up here, can see. You can see it's grayed out here, and that means that it's actually not loading that data. I didn't really want to go into this right now, but as Glide threw it at us, then I guess we, something to play around with. There's other ways of doing that, in the sense of other ways of filtering the data that you show. And I'm actually going to remove that right now because it is... no, I'm not going to remove it. I'm going to leave it because the users that log in with the app idea that I have in mind right now, they're not going to be able to interact with data from another user. That's not a function that we want right now. Sure, maybe we'll introduce that in the future, but for now, I just want to make sure that I log in and it's my own app. It's Seb's app. I'm not seeing Tom's data. I'm not seeing anybody else's data. I'm just seeing my app. Now, I should mention as well that if I create another screen, another table here, let's go new table, and let's call this exercises, and we've got a name. Yeah, let's just call it, let's add a name, and let's say this is bench press. We won't go crazy, and then let's say it's also a oh, it's not a squatty, it is a squat. Let's go deadlift. Oh, spelling is amazing right now. Deadlift. Okay, let's just go with those three right now. So in this table here, the row owner isn't being applied. The row owner is only being applied to this table here. So regardless of who logs in, they can see all the data in this table. But from the users table, it's only the row owner that can see their particular row. I hope that makes sense. If it's not making sense right now, let's not dwell on it. It's not going to be super important just at this stage. Let's just keep on moving. So we wanted to create our profile page, and I think I want to do it like this. And let's just go with that. And then it's got its name. We don't want a role as a subtitle. It's got the image, and yeah, that seems fine. We could have it. Oh. So sometimes, like here, we're not really seeing much difference, and it might be because no, apparently I am wrong. But sometimes what happens is that the style changes apply to desktop but not to mobile, or vice versa. So it could have been the case where circle on desktop, on mobile view, circle, it was always circle regardless of what you choose here. But rounded might have been something that works on desktop. I don't actually know what's going on there. Maybe it's if there's some data missing. So let's just put a test in there, and then that just compacts it. But it's the image style, so not really, not too sure there. There's still a lot of things that Glide confuses me about. But let's, okay, very basic profile home screen. Let's add a button, because that will bring us onto our next sort of pillar of all of this, which is going to be the actions. Now, at the moment, visually we are seeing this button, but this button, to do something, it needs to have a function. It needs to have an action. And the way that we set those up, you can go from very simple actions to quite complex actions. But something very simple in this case is we just want to navigate, navigating from one screen to another. sounds pretty straightforward, and it is, but it needs an action to do that. So in this case, I'm going to go to a new screen. We're actually going to rename this button and call this log workout, log dense session. Cool. Let's add an icon. Let's see if so apparently yeah, let's do, I like that one. Okay, cool. And then we want to show a new screen. The data that we want it to show is, actually we can just keep it to this item. So I don't want to try and over complicate things, but as you can see, there are a lot of settings as you go through things, and these are things that will affect how different elements and different aspects of the app interact with one another. And I won't dive into it right now, and I know that a bunch of questions will come up regarding this, but right now we'll just brush through this. So yes, I want the data to be the current data, target current. If we find that we need to change the data, we'll come back and change it. It's pretty easy. Okay, so we've got that. Let's try it out. It takes us to a new screen. Okay, cool. So why is my face appearing here, and why is this email appearing here? Well, that's because within the action of the button, we chose to show this data being my row of data, to be passed on to the next screen. In the same way that we have a source here, which we're bringing in the users table, even though we're filtering it down to just my row, we're bringing the data from that table. And same again, when we click on this to go to a new screen, we're passing on data to the next screen and the next screen, so it knows what to show. Now, in some cases, we might not use any of that data, at least not visually, but maybe what we will be doing is saving data to that item. So if I want to add a specific exercise to my profile and say this is the last exercise that I did, I would need to have a link to that data somehow, and the way that I would do that is I would have that as my source for this screen, and then I can plug it into there, even if I'm not visually showing any of my own data. So here we're going to add a custom title, and we're going to call this, what are we going to call it? Dense session log. Okay. Now, before we get carried away with that, I actually want to add another screen. And I would always recommend adding a custom screen. There are sample screens here, and there are screens directly from data, but that limits you a little bit on what you can do with that screen. When you have a custom screen, you have your data source for the overall screen, but at the same time, you can pull in components that pull in data from other places. So here we're going to be pulling in a list of exercises, and let's have a look. No, I actually want it as a list. Do I want it as a list? Do I want it as cards? We won't get too carried away with that. With this, exercises, and I think trying to find the perfect icon. We'll just go with none of these are really calling out to me. Whatever, we'll go with this one. A bit more yoga themed than dense style training, the icon, but that's quite okay. We can change it afterwards. So we want right here, what we want to show is we want to show the name, and of course if we had more details regarding that, we would be able to show that as well. I'm quickly going to look up some images. So I've gone over to the data here and I've added this extra column. I'll show you how I added it, because I wanted to cut out the adding of the of the images and looking for that. So here I just called it new image. We'll just give it a name. And then here I have all the different types of data that I can add. And again, there's so many options here. Of course, the ones up top are sort of more basic ones, and then the ones at the bottom kind of get gradually more complex. A computed column is one that runs a calculation. So if you're familiar with spreadsheets, it's kind of like it has a built-in formula. And even though you don't have to write the formula yourself, there may be extra inputs that you need to give it so that it does what you want it to do. But for now, I just clicked on image and then just clicked on done. Created this by double clicking. You can then, I just added it by URL, and then here I've got my images. And I did that basically because over here, what I wanted to do is I wanted to show the image. There we go. And over here in the actions, I want to get rid of these edit items and add items. Okay, yeah, that's what yeah, there we go. I can get rid of the search bar. Sure, maybe in future I want it, maybe I'll add a filter, but right now I just want to keep the UI user interface as clean as possible. We've only got 3 movements. I'm going to enable this because I actually want to get rid of this action here as well. So right now we can see it's got an arrow, and that will normally take us to the detail screen of that movement. So I could click on here and it would say bench press, and this is how you perform it, and these are some of the cues that you want to have in mind, and recommended tempos, things like that. But right now we're not going to worry about that. I'm just actually going to get rid of this action here. So none of these are clickable. Really, it's just I've got my home screen, I've got my list of exercises. As this list grows, then you can add things. I think one of the hard things with starting to develop something like this is really trying to reel it in, keep it simple. You can get so carried away and have that sort of shiny syndrome where it's like, oh, I'll just build out this whole interface that happens when you click on this button, but then where's the rest of your app? In other concepts, we talk about MVPs. We talk about that in development as well, which is your minimum viable product. So what is the minimum that you can do that would make it an app? So right now, I'm not logging any sessions. So I don't have an app. This is a dense training logging app. So if I can't log if I can't log a session, then we haven't got an app. We haven't got an MVP. You could even argue that being able to see the list of exercises isn't necessary in the MVP if you're going to be really, really pure about it. But as we need this list anyway, because we need the data, then adding that screen is really easy, and it's, you know, a quick win. So now that we have that, I should mention as well that with actions, you can go quite deep with actions, and you can customize them quite a lot. I'll just leave it at that. We'll get to a point where we have a more complex action. I'm just going to go to settings right now, and I kind of want to do some app settings here. What am I looking for? A muscle. Great, dense tracking app, sure. Appearance. I actually want it to be redder, and I kind of want it to be a little bit darker. I'll go with accent. Neutral highlight. Yeah, so if I go to the desktop view, this is a setting that will affect the way it looks on desktop, but not the way it looks on mobile. So if I go small, we see how it really reduces in the width of the app overall and adds more space to the sides. If we go back to the mobile view and I play around with this, nothing's really happening. So that's why previously I'd mentioned that show icons in the nav bar. Yeah, we won't worry about any of this right now. Technically, even though we don't have an MVP, this is ready to publish in the sense that I click publish, I can press publish here, I can then share the link with someone, and then they can access this. As simple as that. Like, that's how quick it can be. All that side of the publishing, going live, super quick. So that really allows us to focus on just building the app and making it work. Okay, so what's going to happen when I log a dense session? So first of all, let's think what happens here. So I'm going to say, okay, today I did 10D X amount of kilos or X amount of reps. So with again, we'll keep this simple for now. Of course, with exercises in general, there's so many ways in which you can vary it, because it can be different reps, different tempos, different weight, etc., etc. It gets so customizable to a degree that sometimes it's like, having to have options for all of those makes it overly complicated. So right now we're going to reduce it really down to choosing 10D X amount of reps, and it's going to have X amount of weight. So we choose the movement. We're then going to choose how many, we're just going to stick to 10 at the moment. It's just going to be a block of 10. So let's say squat, I did 10D 5 reps. Okay, what was the weight? Okay, it was 50 kilos. Okay, cool. And that's it. Movement 1 added to the workout. So we already have a custom movement because it takes in different parameters. But then on top of that, we have a custom workout that, maybe I did bench press, squat, and deadlift that same day, and then I want to log that as one workout, not just log them as 3 separate things. For now, we're just going to focus on one because the data is going to get a little bit more complex after that. So let's start doing that. So let's go here, and then first of all, we are going to need a new table, and this is going to be, let's call this workout. Let's just call it logs. Okay, so what's going to happen in the logs? Now remember, this table here, I'm only accessing my row. This table here, everybody has access to this. This table here, everybody has access to it. So right here, let's change the name of this, and this is going to be the movement. Okay, so we have the movement, and then we had the reps, and wait, this is going to be a number. We want the precision to be 1, and yeah, we'll just leave it as that for now. So we have the movement, we have the reps, and we want the weight. And this is going to be a number as well. And precision, yeah, well, in case someone's doing like 0.5, I guess. We're just going to go with kilos right now. Of course, if you're doing pound, then you have to add in the conversions, although maybe someone doesn't mind if one day they log it in pounds and the next day they log it in kilos. But then what if they want to be able to track their overall improvements? One day they're in a gym where they have kilos, and then the next day or a couple weeks later they're training in another gym and they use pounds, and they want to just keep on logging what they're putting in. But then if they have a chart in the app that says, oh, we're logging your progress, you need to start converting the data there. Again, like I said, we can get so complex so quickly, and want to build things to such degree. But right now we're keeping it simple, just going with kgs. Okay, so I'm just going to input this data in manually for now, and then we're going to input it with the app, because there's a key thing that I want to show here. So let's say I did a squat, and then I did it, with 10D5. We're just focusing on the D5 bit. And then weight, we said 50 kilos. I don't need to put in the units because that gets added automatically. Perfect. Okay. Let's go here, and then let's add a list. I want to be able to see the workouts that I've done. So I go to logs, and I go, let's clear that. I don't want to search. I don't want that. Squat. Yeah, let's do reps, and let's do weight. And we'll get rid of that. That for now. Okay, cool. So yeah, not the best layout right now, but we'll work on that in a second. I'll get rid of the action as well. Just to keep things nice and simple. Okay, so awesome. I have it logged there. Now I just need to create a form that does the same thing that I just did, right? Well, what if I now log in as Tom over here? Oh, Tom's also got this, but he didn't do that workout. Okay, so what does that mean? That here in the logs, we actually need to be able to relate this to who did it, right? So again, what we could do here is we could add the user row, the row owner. And that's actually not a bad idea, because again, we don't want to see other people's workouts. If eventually we wanted to have a competitive aspect to it, that we wanted there to be able to compete with friends and whatnot, sure, awesome feature, awesome complex feature that would be great to have in the future. But right now, do I need to be loading everybody's data in, even though I'm just seeing my own? I don't think so. So what we're going to add here, this is going to be a, let's say email. And this is going to just be a, I believe there's an email column, other email. Cool, done. All right, so now we've added an email. So I'll say, okay, can't remember what my test email was. So let's do that. And then let's add the row owner. Okay, cool. So now this is belonging to me, not to Tom. If we go to Tom's, it no longer shows up here. Awesome. I hope this is making sense in terms of the ownership of the data. This is related to me now. Awesome. Okay, well, what if I come back? We're just focusing on one movement right now. It's tomorrow. Okay, awesome. It's a new day. A new day, a new dawn. And I did bench press. And I did 3 reps. And I was feeling strong. And I did 100 kgs. And again, we'll add my email to make sure it belongs to me. Awesome. And then I go here. And like it shows me. It shows me the workouts that I've done. But it doesn't really give me much context as to when I did it. So maybe we should add a date. It's not a bad idea. So let's add a date column. Date and time. And at the moment, go with simple. Go with simple. Need to remind myself out loud sometimes. Go with simple, and we'll go with that. Okay, awesome. Let me just move these around a little bit. Okay, so this is the 7th of the 06th of 23, and then, oh, it's doing it to US style. Okay, whatever. Let's go into the past, not the future. Now it's done it the other way around. Anyway, it's 2 different dates. So then what we can go here, we can go into the collection. We can go to action. No, we can go, where am I here? Options, and let's group by the date. We can also sort by the date. So the date from we want to do the last date to the newest date. So at the top, the most recent workouts will be at the top. Okay, so this is starting to look like we have something, right? So let's go here and let's say that I was feeling extra good on that bench press day, and I actually did some deadlifts as well, and I did, yeah, I'll do it 5, and then I just did 100 kg as well. Awesome. Come back here and we can see that it's grouped it together under the same date. Cool. But we're just putting in the data on into the back end. By back end we mean the raw side of the data, the tables. In development, back end tends to be the data, front end tends to be the visual side of things. So here's the front, data's the back. Okay, well now let's create a form in which we can actually input this data, because the users aren't going to be able to access the tables directly. So now it comes to, what data do I want to have on this new screen? And I'm going to go with the logs, because that's where I'm going to be saving data to. Even though I might not be displaying data from there, that's where I want the data to end up. So therefore I'm linking it to that. And if I go here, sure, it's going to start showing me information based on that. But we can get rid of this. Breadcrumbs are a good thing to have. For the desktop version, it basically gives you a trail of what page you're on. So here it tells us that before we were in home, then we went to this. If you go pages and pages deep through menus, it's a good tool to have so that you can bounce around. I normally leave it in. So here, let's say we want a form. And let's do a form container. Awesome. Some of this is going to be in Spanish because I'm in a Spanish-speaking country right now. Let's go to logs. Oh, so it just added that. It hard-coded that in? Huh, interesting. Hard-coded that in, but did it in Spanish. So if I was in an English-speaking country, it would have done that in English. But okay, so let's say add to exercise, log your exercise. Okay, cool. Email. Okay, so these are the different fields which we want to be able to input the data that will then save that data in the table. So with email, actually what we want to do here is, I believe I don't have access to that because I'm not using a pro version. But that's just as well, because that means that if you're just trying things out, you want to have access to that either. So we'll show the workaround, no problem. So let's have the email, and then here, now, what do we want the default value to be? We could have the user every time input their email, but what if they make a mistake? It won't be saved to the right address, and then it won't display properly. Bunch of things. So it's best when talking about data entry, the less you give to the user, the better, because the more options that you have, the more open you are to errors being committed. So right here, what we're going to do is we're going to go to the user profile. So see here, the options that it gives me is the options of the data for the table that I'm in, which is the logs table, and it's just giving me the data from the first option. But actually what I want to do is the user profile, and I want to get the email. So we have the label email, so it's default, it put that in straight away. Awesome. But now if it's in there, like, do I want to give the user the option to be able to actually change it? That just opens up the possibility to another mistake happening. So we'll go to options here, and we clicked on this entry, text entry or email entry. We'll go to visibility, options, visibility, and we will say I want to see this box when the email is empty. So there's no, as if we go here, as I have an email, it's not showing that box. Now let's create another user just quickly. Let's go with Jeff, and Jeff won't have an email. Now of course this is something that you wouldn't really happen because you would set it up so that they have an email as they set up the login. But it's a good tool to use because you know that it's impossible for that to really happen. So there's no way that they're getting to this screen without an email. So that component will never really show. And that's okay because we want to hide it. But just to give you, oh, it's not showing me Jeff. Yeah, it won't even give me the option of Jeff because Jeff hasn't got an email. But if I go with anyone, so anyone's, if it was a publicly open public app that didn't require a login, so whether it's paid or not, regardless, if it doesn't require a login, then anybody can just access it and have a look at it. And then, yeah, there they would be able to put in their email. Okay, so the date. Now this is one of those where, like, do we want the user to be able to change that? What if you forgot to log your workout yesterday and you wanted to log it? Do we allow them to do that? In this case, yeah, let's just allow it. You know, they can click on it and choose the actual date. The range, we're going to say it's either today or earlier. We don't want them to be able to log events in the future. So see, it won't let me click any of these. And yeah, day of log. Now the movement, this is going to be an interesting one because this is going to highlight that I chose the wrong table. So there's a couple ways around this. So right now the form container, because that's where I'm submitting data, the form container is saying text entry. Oh no, hold on. Let's make this a choice before we make it a text entry. We don't want it to be a text entry. But we do want, and we want to write to the movement column. Okay, yeah, we can set the source. Okay, phew. So the source for this choice button, choice component really. Yeah, I'm actually going to put the image. Movement, and okay, cool. So yeah, there's different ways to display this, but let's say we'll just display it like that. We only have a few. If there was a really long list, then maybe we'd want to do it like that. But hey, so let's say this is required. You can't submit a workout or a log, a session log, without having done any movements. And I don't want to allow selecting multiple right now. We want to keep it simple. Let's make sure that the date is also required. So that means that the form, you won't be able to complete the form and actually save it to the database without these being present. So right now, only these two are required. These aren't required. They will be in a second. But if I choose squat, this now becomes available to be able to submit the data. With the reps, let's go to reps. We want the default value. I'm not going to put in a default value. The minimum value though is going to be 1. 10D0 is not a lot of work. And the max value is, let's just say, let's do 10. 10 for now. we'll add that to required, and then yeah, this has been disabled again. And then weight, again, we want it to be at least 1 kg, and then let's say it's up to 200 kg, and we'll make that required. Okay, cool. So looking so good so far. Now what we want to make sure is if we click on this form container and we go over to options, visibility. So after submit, right now you submit and it just says, it gives you a notification. Yay. So let's try that out. Let's edit 10D10 at 50 kg. And then I say send, and it's just out of the screen record, but just below here it's showing me a notification saying yay. But that's not what we really want. If we go back, did it actually, 50, 10, did it log it? Scott 1057. Huh, I think it did log it. Okay, so cool. We're doing better than we thought. So yeah, the form container, I don't actually use the form container that often. I prefer doing the forms custom. But the form container is, yeah, after submit and action. After submit action. So it submits, that's the base action that it does. And what it does after that is this action configured here. And then what we can do now is, okay, so what we have so far, just to recap, we have the availability to log a session, choose an exercise, say, oh no, that was too many reps, I just did 5 and I did 50 kg, oh, too heavy as well, 50 kg, and then I can send that, it gives me a notification, but then it stays here. So what I'm going to do is, instead of this, and I could combine it and have multiple actions, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a go back action, so that at the moment of submitting, and I'm going to submit, let's do a different movement, 10, and then I did it really light, and then let's go, it pushes me back a screen, and then I can see here. So okay, yeah, this is the one that I logged earlier. That was like way in the future. I'm actually going to get rid of that one because it is confusing. Yeah, okay, there we go. So what we want to do here, options, group by date. Yeah. So what's strange here is that this is actually the same date, but it's grouping them as separate. See right here, it's grouping them, these two are under this same date. Whereas over here, these three are appearing as apparently being different dates. So let's investigate what's going on there. It looks the same here. Test email. Logs, options, sort, group by date. That is strange. I wonder if it's, so what it might be doing, oh, it shouldn't be. If I go date and time, yeah, so it's doing this. So even though, oh, that shouldn't be that way, because I'm doing date only. That's annoying. So the reason why I was combining them as, it wasn't grouping them together, is because actually they were done in different seconds. So even if we hide it and do date only, it's actually only hiding that information. It's not actually just giving the information of the date. Let's have a, okay, but if we, I guess we'll start introducing some interesting new columns. So let's say it's date and time. Okay, well, how do we get just the first part of this? Well, as we see, luckily for us, it's split into two. So we have one area here separated by a comma, and then another bit of information here. So let's change this to date, date time. Cool. And then let's add a new column, and this is going to, yes, it's going to split the text. What text do we want to split? We want to split the date time, and we want to split it based on a comma. And we're going to call this split date. Cool. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add another column right, and we're going to, this is going to be a, I believe it's a roll up, if I remember correctly, or maybe it's a single value. Get the first from split date. Yep, that works. And this is going to be date only. So here what it's doing, it's getting a single value, and we could get the first, the last, a random start to end. There's different options there. From this that's split. So in this case it's first value, second value, etc, etc, etc. We're just getting the first one, and we're showing that here. So now we've got our date only. And I think this is a really good example to show that you can do a lot of things, but one of the caveats that you have in Glide, at least, is that often more columns need to be added to do each little step. Now that's both it's got a good side and a bad side. The good side is that, like what we did just now, like sure, you need to know the different column types that you can use and how to use them, but really it's not that complex. And being able to split a text in two and then select a specific section of that text is something that to developers such as code would probably take a lot longer than what I just did right now. And I didn't have to do much really. But the caveat is, say I wanted, say I had 20 columns and a lot of them are dates, and I wanted to separate the dates, and this is where the process of building with Glide becomes its own sort of creative process, because there's many ways to skin a cat, as you might say. Some are definitely better than other ways, but there's many ways to do it, and depending on what our own needs are and what our own abilities are, we might come to different solutions. And sometimes the solution that we come to is the best first time round, and sometimes it works just as we want it, but then later on we realize, oh, actually, now that I've incorporated these new features, my needs have changed a bit, and this needs to change as well. So it's a constant process, really. But now we should be able to group these. So let's go here, and rather than date time, we're going to go by date only, and look at that. It's grouped here. Now, sure, this isn't the most exciting app right now. There's lots of work that can be done in many aspects, but really, it's like I can click publish and share the link right now, and then have my friends sign up and start using this and start logging their workouts, their sessions. And the awesome thing about this as well is that while it's live, I can edit it, I can modify it. So say I come back to this tomorrow, my friends have already been logging some of their scores, and I say, actually, I want to make this as a chart. I want to make it so that you can click on the exercises and it gives you the form. And as I'm building that, it'll get updated in the app. Now that's it's got a pro and a con as well, like everything. If I suddenly delete this and then decide to log out and call it a day, then my friends are going to log in, and this is already live, this is published, I'm working on the live version right now. They're going to come in and say, where are all my workouts? Now that doesn't mean they're deleted permanently, they're still in the back end in the data, but they're not going to see it. So these are things that we need to be careful about. And again, there's tricks of the trade, so to say, that ways in which you can be working on an app that's active, that's live, that people are using as you're building on it, and ways in which you can do that build process without interfering with what they're seeing, and then make that seamless transition into the new feature that you've just pushed out. I hope this was useful. I know I went through a lot of things very fast, and I know that it might be a little bit overwhelming, but I'd be really interested to hear about what are some of the things that caught your attention, what questions come up. I have no problem answering the questions that you send me, and really want to get the discussion going a little bit with the community and see in which way I can help you get closer to that app that you want to build. I want to be making more videos of this like this in the future. So yeah, leave me your comments, your suggestions, your questions, and yeah, I'm excited to see what you come up with this basic information. Have a play around, throw me some questions, and